Hi everyone. This is the voice behind the noise. And I am Myron. The aircraft carrier is an important ocean combat weapon, and many countries don't hesitate to invest a lot of manpower and material resources in order to develop this weapon. However, it is precisely because of the advanced nature of this weapon that only a few countries have mastered aircraft carrier technology today. But just recently, 4 aircraft carriers appeared without foundation in one country overnight. So, who is this country, and what is the story behind the emergence of these 4 aircraft carriers? Today, this program will reveal the answer to these questions. The aircraft carrier was born in Britain in 1912. At the time, the British Navy had simply retrofitted several older cruisers to allow aircraft to dock on the ships. These planes taking off on ships can detect the enemy at sea and report the naval fleet, and this is the prototype of the aircraft carrier. From the history of the birth of aircraft carriers, we can see that the original aircraft carriers only played an auxiliary role in naval battles and did not determine the outcome of a war. What really brought the aircraft carrier to the center of the stage was World War II. In December 1941, Japan attacked U.S. Pearl Harbor, and most of the U.S. battleships and cruisers were sunk and damaged by the Japanese. This made most Americans at that time hold a pessimistic attitude towards the future about the Pacific War. However, in the Battle of Midway in 1942, U.S. General Nimitz, when his fleet was smaller than the Japanese, used the aircraft carrier skillfully to win more with less, which also made many people realize when it comes to aircraft carriers, it may be an important weapon to turn the tide of war in future wars. So, what exactly is the role of the aircraft carrier? In short, an airport on the water. The fighter jets taking off from the aircraft carrier can help the fleet gain air superiority, while the bombers taking off from the aircraft carrier can strike the enemy fleet, and at the same time, they can go deep into the interior of the country and attack the enemy troops and industrial facilities on the land. Since the speed of ships at sea is not as fast as that of planes in the air, once air supremacy is in the hands of the enemy, our fleet will become a target for the enemy's planes. This makes the aircraft carrier the key to the decisive victory of the two navies after World War II. It is precisely because of the realization of the importance of aircraft carriers that the U.S. military vigorously developed aircraft carriers after World War II and maintained the current battle group composed of a total of 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, thus establishing its own status as world hegemony. Although almost all countries realize that aircraft carriers are the decisive force in naval operations, until today, not all countries have their own aircraft carriers. One of the important reasons is that the development of aircraft carriers is very difficult. First of all, the development of aircraft carriers needs to consume a huge amount of money. The maintenance of the U.S. military's 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carrier battle groups will cost a total of billions of dollars. The military expenditure of aircraft carriers alone has approached the GDP of several small countries. Therefore, countries with relatively poor economies maintain fewer aircraft carriers, such as Russia, which only maintains one aircraft carrier. Secondly, the development of aircraft carriers requires an independent and complete industrial system. If there is no such an independent system, then a country's aircraft carriers are either bought from other countries, or technically controlled by others, or they can only play the role of guarding the security of their own territorial waters, and cannot act as a blue water navy. For example, in Thailand and India today, although there are aircraft carriers, they are all bought from other countries, and their own technology is controlled by others. Although Italy and Turkey also have aircraft carriers, they are both light aircraft carriers, and do not have the ability to travel far. Therefore, if the two factors of technological independence and financial support are taken into account, then only the United States, China, the United Kingdom and France are the only 4 countries in the world that can fully grasp the aircraft carrier technology and play the role of aircraft carriers. This country is Japan. In fact, in a strict sense, the so-called Japan-built 4 aircraft carriers overnight on the internet is not a real aircraft carrier, but 4 destroyers that can be used for helicopter taking off and landing. However, in terms of these destroyers being available for helicopter takeoff and landing, these 4 Japanese destroyers do have the potential to act as aircraft carriers. Moreover, in terms of tonnage, the tonnage of these 4 Japanese destroyers has also reached the level of light aircraft carrier. For example, the displacement of the Izumo-class destroyer is 20,000 tons, and the displacement of the Hyuga-class destroyer is 13,000 tons. From these data, there is indeed the scale of a light aircraft carrier. Another worrying point is that Japan is currently purchasing the B-type carrier-based fighter jets of the F-35 fighter jets from the U.S. military. Once the Japanese army extends the decks of the 4 destroyers and deploys the F-35B on them, the 4 destroyers will not be much different from the role of the aircraft carrier. So, why does Japan not develop aircraft carriers openly and aboveboard, but use this method of secretly modifying destroyers to develop aircraft carriers? In fact, during World War II, Japan had the ability to develop aircraft carriers and launched a large number of aircraft carriers during the Pacific War. However, due to the failure of World War II, Japan, as a defeated country, was restricted by the United Nations, requiring it not to allow the reproduction of aircraft carriers. In the face of such armament restrictions, Japan can only use this modified model to develop aircraft carriers. However, it is a challenge to the post-World War II United Nations order and a manifestation of the irresponsibility of the past. Whether Japan is desperate behind this, or whether the United States deliberately loosens Japan's bondage, is currently unknown. How do you feel about this? Please put your comments below and share your insightful ideas with other people so that we can have a further discussion. Okay, that's all for today. We will see you in the next video. Goodbye.